What is up, guys? I do hope you're well. My name is Mark, and today we're tackling r/ProRevenge. If you're new here, please consider hitting that like, that subscribe, and maybe that notification bell if you enjoy the content, of course. And with that being said, let's get into today's stories. Much love, guys. Our first story is from Peculiar Liar. Got me fired? Say goodbye to your bonus and promotion. This happened a good long while ago. I was in high school and got a job at one of the big box stores in the computer department. This store chain had an in-house technician department, which was always where I wanted to go. After busting my ass in sales for 2 years, putting up with rude customers, silly rules, and all other glorious trappings of retail job, I finally got a chance to be promoted to a technician department. It was not as glamorous as I thought it would be. I quickly found out that most of the repairs consisted of running pre-packaged antivirus suite, updating Windows and doing data backups prior to wiping customers clean and reinstalling them. I always liked tinkering with hardware more, but since 80% of customers had laptops and those repairs were deemed too complicated by corporate, we would just send the laptops out to get repaired by a third-party vendor. It was still better than sales by a long shot, and we had a great team working in the technician area, except for one dude. Let's call him Mike. He always behaved like his crap smelled like roses. He was technically a lead technician, and even though that just meant he had a little more authority, he had access to corporate account to arrange shipments of computers to and from our store. He was acting like he was the manager of the department. Nevertheless, our actual manager was a splendid dude that took care of us and such. Mike's douchery did not bother any of us that much. Fast forward a little and our awesome manager found a much better job. This opened up a spot for manager, and since the whole store supervision was going through a shake-up, the general manager was fired for embezzlement, and all the people we hired, 90% of managers, were under review. This led to everybody trying their hardest not to fuck up, and the new GM decided that since our department was one of the best in the district, he would not try to hire an outsider, but will promote from within. Now, Mike was working at the store for almost 10 years at that point, and a couple of people that started working with him as sales associates were by this point managers and assistant managers. One of them, Brittany, was an assistant manager in charge of customer services and checkout. One of the conditions for Mike's official promotion to manager was to keep the #1 spot in the district performance-wise. One of the key metrics was the rejection rate from our third-party vendor. If we mistakenly sent them a software problem to fix, they would charge us extra. Mike started obsessing about the numbers, especially when it came to the rejection rate. He insisted that we would spend extra time to confirm issues, even when there were recalls from manufacturers for these items. I hated the bureaucracy, since it meant that people needed to wait almost the maximum allowed time to get their computers back. So a few times I skipped the extra diagnostics when I knew for sure the problem was hardware. One day, Mike decided to do an audit on all outgoing machines and found out that I've sent 4 units skipping his extra checks. He told me that he will write me up for it, but when he tried, GM told him that he is not a manager yet, and I have shown to the GM that I followed the corporate procedure in diagnosing these units. I thought that was the end of this, but I was sorely mistaken. Mike hated that I showed GM that Mike's procedure was insufficient and that he was denied power over me. About a month later, I got a call from Mike asking if I could come to the store on my day off because there was an issue with a customer. When I came in, I was greeted by Mike with a shit-eating grin, and he told me to wait in the back and not to work on any computers. After about an hour, Mike and Brittany come in and asked me to head to the front office. They start an official write-up process and claim that I have made a mistake creating a backup of customers' data and placed a DVD with no data on it in the box that was returned to the customer and then wiped his PC clean. I knew that it was bullshit, since I always copy the data to an external hard drive, run antivirus to make sure that nothing bad got copied, and then burn DVDs. Yet, when I asked to check the external hard drive, Mike said that due to my negligence, I was not allowed back in the tech area. He went to check the hard drive and said there was nothing on it. At this point I knew he was bullshitting, but him and Brittany were hell-bent on completing the write-up. I've asked for a senior management to be present, and was shot down again. Turns out GM was on vacation. They completed the write-up and told me that due to egregious error that cost the company tens of thousands of dollars, I was not allowed to work in the tech room and I would be relegated back to the sales floor. I told them to shove it and I submitted my resignation on the spot. I later found out that a week later they gave the customer the data that was on the hard drive all this time. Mike simply erased the DVDs. I grabbed a DVD rewritable by mistake for that backup and waited for the customer to come back and complain. I have also called the corporate HR line and told them what happened. They said that since I quit with a letter of resignation, they would not launch an investigation. but they have received and recorded my complaints. Through luck and the fact that I was a good hardware tech, I landed a job at a shop that did hardware repairs a week later and started in another week. Turns out, this depot was the service centre that covered the entire district, and they had the master contract with a big box chain where I worked. Since I have worked as a tech in that store, I was more than familiar with their labelling and ticketing system. For tracking purposes, the label included the store and technician number. After a couple of weeks, I gathered some goodwill at my new job and started trading the units with my colleagues to work on as many units from my old store as possible. Over the next 3 months, I made sure that every single unit sent in by Mike would come back with an extra charge. Also, it turned out that Mike, since he was in charge of shipping, would sometimes steal other technicians' tickets to boost his personal performance numbers to secure that manager promotion. Well, that bit him in the arse hard. There was one week in particular when he sent over 15 units out of 20 to get fixed, and 15 units came back with an extra software charge. I have also kept detailed records that proved that Mike did not follow his own policy of extra checks. When the performance figures came out from that quarter, the store crashed into 5th place from 1st. Mike missed out on his promotion and a big bonus that was promised to him. A good buddy of mine from the store got the manager position a few months after that, and I have explained to him how to reduce the numbers of software charges to almost zero, so he looked like a superstar. Mike was first relocated to lead technician, then he was either let go or quit, I'm not sure. Last I heard, he started his own mobile technician business that folded after a year. What I didn't know is that this whole incident with Mike fucking up led to the GM to review everything Mike did, including my write-up and dismissal. As it turns out, they did not even register the write-up since I quit on the spot and buried it. The only way the GM was able to find it was because of a HR complaint that was filed against both Mike and Brittany. GM was not pleased that they went behind his back to get rid of someone and fired Brittany. He was a very decent man who called me later that day and apologised, and it even offered me my old job back. I thanked him, but I was making more money at the new place and did not have to deal with customers, so I passed. Oh my word. The only downside to that story was that you actually quit. Never quit. Make their life hell before you go. Oh, you should have went straight to the top and got them involved rather than letting them sort of force you to quit, you know. Oh my god. But at the same time, you got a job with better pay and some spicier revenge on top, so fair play to you on that as well. Our next story is from Weeb Source Oshi. When Karen used Down syndrome kids against me, she didn't expect this. I can finally talk about this. After years of threats of legal action, etc., it is now officially over. Back in 2003, when unemployed, I decided to volunteer at a local education facility that specialised in helping out young to late teen kids with Down syndrome or high levels of autism, which cause themselves to be antisocial. I hate not being able to work, so volunteering not only got myself out of my boring, doing nothing everyday schedule, but also gave me a positive when applying for work. Everyone likes someone who is trying to better themselves. It is a great place with some great people who volunteer, and the kids are imaginative and show love unconditionally. The local community was also amazing, donating items, clothes, food and money to help keep the facility running. Just shy of 2 years later, after many people coming and going, Karen appears. At first she has a nice smile and is accommodating. The kids seem to love her a lot, until the jealousy started. Karen didn't understand for the last 2 years I've been doing volunteering, even when doing part-time jobs I could find, so she assumed I was just recently new. So when the kids always came to me to give me hugs and tell me what they did that day and show off their art, well, Karen didn't like this, and she was jealous of my popularity with the kids. This started a spate of things happening. I was a smoker at that time, not anymore, have quit since 7 years ago. Best thing ever. So a rule was to make sure lighters, matches and cigarettes were locked away in lockers at all times. This included medication and mobile phones. Anything that could be a bad thing in the wrong hands, although the kids would tell anyone that something that was sitting out in the open that shouldn't be there was there, and we'd put them away. But this one day Karen had gone off to the manager/HR administrator to say that I'd left my cigarettes out with my lighter, an electronic one which was unique. I was busy that day, so I was apologetic, as I could have easily forgotten, as you are kept off your feet constantly. But in the back of my mind I had a niggling doubt that I am sure I put them in my locker. Over 4 months, every 2 to 3 weeks, something else was left in the open, or the door to the cleaning closet was left open after I had used the equipment inside. Each time Karen went to the manager/HR to say about this. Karen has kids of her own that left after they hit 18 plus, so at the time, I am putting it down to automatic motherly defensiveness for the kids. The following month, one of the girls, we will call her Jo, not her real name, had burst into the room crying with blood flowing quickly from her nose. All the volunteers, including myself, instantly went to check up on Jo. She was looking flustered, looked at me and gave a big yell and ran off to hide. When Jo was flustered or upset about something, she would always hide, but she always came to me first to say why or to hint at why, but this time she didn't, and Karen burst in. "How could you do this to Jo?" Devil eyes peering at me. I'm taken back. "What? Who? What do you mean? What happened to Jo?" She replied, "I can't believe I just watched you 5 minutes ago punch her in the face," and she rushed off to manager/HR. I'm standing there aghast, unsure what the hell is going on. Jo in the corner somewhere behind boxes crying her eyes out. Some new volunteers looking at me as if I am bad, and other kids looking perplexed because I have never done this at all before. Even with Down syndrome, they understand most of what is going on around them. Manager comes in quickly, looking angry, which is understandable hearing what Karen told her, asked me why I did this. This shocked me hard because here is a manager who has known me for the last 2.5 years and instantly thought I could do this to the kids. I deny it, of course. I've been in the room for at least 25 minutes. The others couldn't corroborate, as we are always busy and we don't notice small things like who is in the room and for how long. The manager goes to Jo and asks her. She looks at me and instantly sobs her heart out again and says with a stammering, "Yes." This hit me harder than the manager, instantly thinking I could do this. Jo has been like a little sister who would tell me everything and always came to me when in trouble. So police were called, everyone given information. Jo was too scared in her place of hiding, so I was effectively let go pending an investigation. Hardly anyone gets reinstated after any type of investigation, but Jo's parents were seemingly at a loss for words and didn't think I could do this, and after talking to Jo on their own, they dropped the charges. But the damage was done and I was asked to never come back. Later found out that Karen and her jealousy was telling other newer volunteer staff that I was touching up the kids, always hitting them and leaving dangerous stuff about. She had watched me at my locker, digital number keypad type, and saw my pin for the locker, and left things about, including the lighter and cigarettes, all because the kids would always come to me. Fast forward to 2009, after lots of rejections from places for volunteering, one place was run by an ex-volunteer who knew this was all BS and gave me a chance. She was great and understanding, would help all types of people in the community to do events for charities, etc. I enjoyed it very much. One day the boss came to me and said, "Oh, guess who is coming with the kids today?" Only goddamn Karen. Since years back, Karen had moved up the ranks, so to speak, and had through some rumours forced the manager to quit, so wanted the ex-volunteer who ran this place to help the kids put on a play so she can show it off to the regional director who helps fund the facility I used to volunteer at. Oh boy. Luckily Karen never gets to see me. She talked to the person who runs the place that I'm at now. Everything is arranged, and the kids would come twice a week to work on and rehearse their play they would put on. Sort of real life situations they meet in their lives and how to overcome them. And of the eldest kids is Jo. She sees me and rushes over to me and hugs me to death, crying at the same time, saying, sorry, about what seemed like forever. I patted her head and said it's okay, because I know she was coerced into it. Jo told me everything she could about Karen. She punched Jo, told her to blame me. She wouldn't. Then she got punched again, same spot. This time with a threat, to tell it was me or she would never come back here and go to the bad place, which was a publicly funded place, which isn't really good. Lightbulb moment. Real life situation and how to overcome them. I got in touch with Jo's parents and they were so apologetic because Jo told them everything and they tried to tell the manager/HR before, but she put it down to Jo isn't sure and she just wanted me back. So I told them of the play and if we could introduce Jo's experience with Karen as part of the play. They were hesitant at first, and after a couple of hours I got a text on my phone. Yeah, go for it. Take that lying bitch down. So months go by. Jo knew not to tell anyone about the play, it was a secret. Then it was time for the big night. Room is packed, other groups did their choirs, plays, artistic dances. It was a great night. I looked through the thick wine curtains at the stage to see Karen, looking all pleased with herself, next to the director. Apparently this was make or break for Karen. Please the director get the manager position, which was a paid position and not volunteer. She was a temporary manager and being paid, but this would solidify it. The kids came on, each group did their own things, they were amazing and people were enjoying it. Some jokes here and there that we helped the kids remember. Then Jo was last, a solo performance. Jo stood on stage and in her best voice, My Time at Facility Name by Jo. I am watching Karen through the curtain and she is looking perplexed, forcing a smile at the director who is loving it and way paying super attention to all the kids. Who wouldn't be if you were funding the kids? So I stepped to the side of the curtain and eventually Karen's eyes met my face and I cheekily waved. And then her face became one of massive concern. Joe put on an amazing performance and the piece de resistance was a slow part about Karen. In the dark with the light shining on Joe for a dramatic effect, she mimicked what happened to her that day. "That hurt me, Karen. Why did you punch me? You did this to me, not..." Me, of course. Then she covers her nose again, as if hit again. "No, Karen, don't hit me again. I don't want to leave here. I will do it." She stands up straight from her crouched defensive position and says, "Karen told me to lie and say Opie hit me or I'll go to the bad place." The director's face was unforgettable. He sat with his jaw literally hanging down and mouth agape. Karen was looking at me, at Joe, at the director, back and forward. Back and forward, you could see her trying to figure out something to save herself. I just walked backstage. Job done. Later I high-fived Joe and told her, "Good job, you were amazing." She gave me the biggest, cheesiest grin with a thumbs up. It made me tear up. Karen blamed me for obviously making Joe say all these things and police were called again, but my boss didn't take her side of course and allowed me to remain. For years Karen would always serve me up some weird summons to court for one thing or another. I wouldn't go and she wouldn't, so I automatically win. Now there is a second pro-revenge here. One of the girls who was at the facility when I was there was Meg. Again, not her real name. She has Down syndrome but auto-MS. Sweetest girl ever. She was bullied by Karen to say stuff about me, such as touching her, but Meg would always say no every single time, even when Karen would pinch her badly on parts of her body like arms, back of neck. Meg's parents thought the kids at the facility were hitting her and gave her a teddy bear she called Barry the bear. Barry was special, it had a camera, so she would have the bear and if anything bad happened, she knew to press the bear's paw to start recording. Anyway, they forgot about it because Meg didn't have any more marks, etc. Guess Karen stopped tormenting her. But unfortunately, Meg lost her battle with MS March of last year and they were going through her things. And the father found Barry the bear and remembered why they got it. They went through what was recorded. Now back then things like this did exist but were heavy and expensive and not much storage. Well, Joe was playing with Barry the bear as Meg allowed her to play with him. They were good friends. Joe must have accidentally pushed the paw to start recording, and on the recording you could hear Karen in the background coming near. Karen had a policy of telling kids not to touch things that's not theirs, so Joe must have feared that and put Barry on the shelves next to her, and we didn't see what happened, but it recorded the sounds, the threats, the audible strikes, the crying. So Meg's parents told me about this, and that started me down the legal route to finally get Karen for good. It resulted in going to court, and after a day they found Karen guilty, but she was banned from working with kids, placed on a register which records violence against children for 15 years, and was fined $50,000 and must have paid damages to me, Joe and Meg's parents. Unfortunately, the stigma I received back then never did go away, and I can't still go back to the facility to volunteer, even after the truth. But that is okay. I'm currently going to start a new job and will volunteer at weekends. But I know that Karen and her ambitious jealousy is now having the worst time ever. Everyone in the community knows what she did, and she became a bit of a recluse and hardly ventures anywhere. Sorry for the long story, didn't realise I typed so much. Holy crap, man. The sad situation is, fucking nearly bringing me to tears, that poor Meg lost her battle after what she went through, and it didn't come out while she was still alive. Wow. And I know that revenge on her is fucking great, but she deserves so much worse. Hitting kids. Why would you volunteer at a place and abuse kids like that? There's no excuse for it, you know. It's absolutely sickening. And our final story is from Horatius Cockles. I got fined and went after the boss's money, his hotel, and his marriage. Back when I was still in university, I used to work for a hotel to make ends meet. When I started, the hotel very urgently needed new personnel, so I cut a deal with the old owner about getting to choose and pick shifts, so I could visit my courses and exams. Speaking some extra foreign languages, I also got a little bonus each month on top. The old owner was a great guy. He owned multiple hotels, so I rarely saw him. But when he was in-house, he always made a point to have drinks with the staff, chat with us, and if we were free, he invited those at the front desk to fancy restaurants who were not on shift. Fast forward, I had worked in the hotel for a few years now and was nearing the completion of my studies. so it wouldn't have been an eternity until I had to quit anyway, as I was of course more interested to work in my field of study. As part of my deal with the old owner, I mostly chose to work night shifts, allowing me to visit my courses at university during the day. To make up for my privileges, I had picked up a habit of doing some extra work in the dead of night other shifts would normally have to do, when I in contrast could have sat around and stared at the walls. People were grateful for the help in the beginning, and we became a rather tight-knit group, but over time, people rotated in and out. When the old owner retired and his arsehole of a son took over the business as the new owner, I already feared the worst. The new owner didn't like me very much. I never found out the exact reason for that one. I was at that point nearly the sole veteran left from when I started. Among the tasks I had taken on was doing light clerical tasks to ease the manager's job in the morning. For that, I generally had to use the manager's network account. One night doing my lists, I log into the manager's account and email to do my job. Then I saw an email with my name in the subject line. I know it's not nice to snoop, but of course, I read it. Turns out the new manager wanted to get rid of me. I still had my old employee contract with the bonuses for foreign language abilities and was allowed by my contract to pick and choose shifts. I can only assume these privileges are what made the new owner hate me. No idea if he had other reasons, because to be honest, these seemed very weak to me, but he couldn't fire me without cause. On top of that, I would be owed severance if fired, and generally, there were not enough bodies in the shift rotation without me, though the new owner didn't seem to understand that point, as the emails told me. I looked for more emails concerning me and found them. There was an email chain between some of the employees, the manager, and the new owner. I was of course not CC'd, as I was the hated topic. The employees didn't like me hogging the night shifts, because those pay better, and for every night you worked, you got paid the night bonus. The manager was the only one rather neutral on the matter, and just curbed their enthusiasm to get rid of me, as they needed me to be fully staffed. The new owner and my colleagues actively conspired to make a hostile work environment, so I quit on my own volition. I was furious. I thought about a variety of reactions, from egging their cars to burning down the hotel, but I settled on a less crazy method of revenge. I called my uncle at 2 AM asking for advice. My uncle is a lawyer, so for sake of proof, I forwarded myself all the emails. I made photos, printed them out, made copies and filmed the whole deal, just to be sure. My uncle told me to sit tight and see if things got worse, or if it was just bluster. And so I gave it a few days, and things did take a turn. Snide remarks about my looks, clothing, and so on were only the tip of the iceberg. Some of the colleagues were just as professional as before, but the conspirators always left extra work for me or pawned of shit duties they normally had to do on me. I always kept a spare shirt and suit at work, just to have a change, which suddenly disappeared. One guy even started to threaten me with violence, but I kept clenching my butt cheeks. I would not give them the satisfaction of saving on the severance or giving in. I am a big boy after all. I did, however, stop doing any extra work I was not obligated to do, which in the end was the reason they used to fire me. They still had to pay me severance. The next day, my uncle with bundled proof of the email and all documented harassment by my colleagues served the hotel with my lawsuit. It started with wrongful termination and ended with harassment. Reportedly, the manager went as white as a sheet when he realised where the emails must have come from. The new owner had been on vacation and had to cancel his expensive vacation in France to deal with this. Their counsel had advised them to settle, so I accepted my severance and a hefty bonus on top, enough money to last me until the end of university without work. But that was not all my revenge. I had gone after the new owner's money, but in the next step, I went after the hotel. I used all the spare time during night shifts alone to document every last violation of city, county, district, state, and federal law I could find. That went from minor things like some harmless mould under the kitchen sink to substantial violations like modifications to the building. The building was under a limited form of historical protection by federal law, on the ground of being built and inhabited by somewhat important historical figures a few hundred years back. So every renovation or change in the floor plans needed to be signed off by a committee, which can take ages. There is also a grant paid to the new owner by the government for keeping the building intact as it is. So with my uncle's help, I sent documentation of every violation I could find to the corresponding agency. In 1 month, everything from health, building code, fire safety to finance and work police crawled over the hotel. In the end, it was the building and fire inspectors that shut the place down. The new owner had done substantial renovations to the top floor luxury apartments, which he used when he was in town. So the new owner had to pay back the grant, pay fines for unauthorised alterations to the building, endangering his guests because something wasn't built right according to fire code, and had to close down shop until the building was fixed. I also tipped off a friend who had studied journalism and worked at a local paper. The paper ran an article on all violations accumulated, which tanked the business once it had reopened, as the newspaper article had led to horrible reviews. In the end, to afford all fines, repayments and building costs, the new owner sold the hotel. As a cherry on top, all the assholes who tried to harass me out lost their job. Granted, the people who didn't do anything to me lost their jobs too, but didn't do anything to stand up for me or help me either, so I don't feel too much remorse. And the revenge cherry on top was that the new owner, whenever he was in town, used to bring home escorts, which in my country is not illegal, but he was married. It took some doing to get that information to the new owner's wife, but one of my former colleagues, who had quit before this had all happened, had her email. So I let her know what the new owner was up to when he was out of town. I don't know what exactly happened, but they did divorce in the end. Make of that what you will. Holy shit, this should be a nuclear revenge, I think. I was quite happy that the guy settled and he got all his money up, to get him through university, but then he did actually get rid of the hotel and his marriage. Holy crap. The guy sounds like a right arsehole though. Not the OP, the owner of the hotel, so fair play to you. I think he had that coming to him, you know. I wonder what the old owner, the retired guy, made of his son after he sold it. Be interesting to know. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed these stories as much as I did reading them. It's been a while since we did some revenge, so it's always spicy to read. If you did enjoy, please consider hitting that like, that subscribe, and maybe that notification if you enjoyed, of course. If you have made it this far, I'm hoping you did enjoy. And I will see you in the next one. Much love, guys.